we all complain, but those of us who understand what we're complaining about usually are in better shape. If we can use the frustration that we're complaining about, to Alan's point, to get curious about something, to be some extra necessity, at the end of the day, I think that's positive.
Complaining is constructive, in all honesty, if it's not just complaining to complain. And I really do believe that. I think that the whole world gets better when we all innovate through understanding how to get better through complaining and through frustration understanding and deep conversations about these things. I mean, otherwise nothing ever improves.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1642. It was Freestyle Friday. We did a deep identity dive, is what we did yesterday. We went deep yesterday. Today, for episode number 1643, we all complain, but I am not at the stage in my life where I don't complain about things. Will I ever get to that place? I don't know. I don't even know if that's a place I aspire to get to. I know it sounds really good where, if you don't complain, your life completely changes and all that. I'm sure it does. I definitely complain far less than I have in the past. But I try to, if I'm complaining about something I can change, use the complaining to help me change something, right? If I'm going to complain about something that I can change, I can also put my energy into actually changing it. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is because I saw something recently, and it made me sad. That's probably the best way to put it, because I definitely have dealt with it in the past. I definitely would be in this bucket of experience in the past, but I also know it was really hurting me, and it would have really hurt me. So I saw a post the other day, or something on Instagram or whatever platform I was on, that was all about how so many stores are doing self-checkout now. Every store you go into, they kind of have their own self-checkout. Whole Foods just put one in recently. The one we go to, Target, all of them. They all have their kind of their own self-checkout. And there were so many people in the comments saying, this is terrible, and how dare they do this, and they're stealing people's jobs, and all that stuff. And I have never lost my job due to automation and due to technology, so I can't claim to know what that feels like. But here's where it gets a little muddy. Unfortunately, oftentimes the people that are complaining about that are also the people who are not focusing on how to avoid getting left behind because of the thing they're complaining about. And I know I used to think that way for sure. I used to feel like, well, this thing is terrible and it's affecting all these people. And then unfortunately, if I didn't do anything about my own circumstances, it probably would have ended up affecting me at some point. It's just this weird thing where it's hard to understand why something is happening if you don't know the thing above it or the thing below it. So the reason it's happening is because technology is speeding up, and now it's more cost efficient for a store to put in a self-checkout than it is to have someone there. That's a piece of it. But that also means, depending on what your job is, that might be coming for you too. If you're somebody who assembles stuff, technology and robots are probably coming for you in some way, shape, or form. I just don't want you to get smashed over the head with that awareness. That's really why I wanted to do this episode. I don't want this to be from a judgmental whatever. I don't want it to be that. I want it to be more from an awareness place of, there's a lot of people who know where the future is going, but they don't usually communicate it to everyone. Unfortunately, it's almost like the people who know where the future is going don't really communicate it to the people who get affected most by where the future is going. And again, Alan, you can speak at a higher level than I because you understand AI and you have worked around it. You know it better than I do. But that's really why I wanted to do this episode. I was someone who I worked with my hands. All the jobs I worked at, I was easily replaceable. And if I look back, a lot of the jobs that I had might not exist. I mean, Massachusetts is one of I think there's only like 2 or 3 states where you have to have someone pump your gas. New Jersey's one of them. There's gas attendants in New Jersey. Is that always going to be a thing? I don't know. I have to imagine at some point everything's going to be you pump your own gas. That wouldn't have been an opportunity for me that would have stayed forever. So, but I also feel like I probably would have said, well, they can't change that. It's not fair for them to change the laws. What am I going to do? I want all the empathy to come through in this episode. I just don't want you to get stuck. And that's ultimately, when we say heart-driven, no BS, heart-driven, I'm afraid to talk about things like this at times because I don't want to be villainized, but I also want to make sure that I'm adding value, and sometimes that requires talking about the stuff that kind of sucks.
This topic touches my heart so deeply because before Kevin and I teamed up way back, I worked for a company called Cognex, and Cognex sold industrial automation equipment. Essentially what they sold was what's called machine vision. And machine vision is exactly what it sounds like. Imagine the eyes of a robot. So I would go into these manufacturing facilities and just picture an ice cream company that you love. I'm not technically publicly supposed to talk about it, so I just don't. I just say, picture the biggest ice cream company you can think of that you love, this ice cream company. You're probably landing on the one. So I was in this facility, and I'll never forget it. There were these people at the end of the line that were checking the cartons to make sure. So if you're on video, I've got a Pedialyte here. I've got a carton in front of me. And the machine vision equipment that I used to sell as a sales engineer on the road would check that it says Pedialyte correctly. It would check that the cap was on properly. We had this 3D one that would laser scan it and make sure that that it was the right dimensions and all that kind of stuff. So I would go into these manufacturing facilities and I would see these people at the end of the line, and they're checking the cartons of ice cream to make sure they're good. Okay, quality assurance. Make sure every carton is on point. You don't want to go to the grocery store and get the crushed one. Mm. And I remember I left that day getting really sad, similar to what you described at the beginning of this episode, because I knew that I sold equipment that was taking those people's jobs. And I remember thinking like, wow, okay. And this was my thought process. Here I am. I'm in my early 20s. I make a lot of money. I'm a top 1% earner globally. And this is back when I was in my early 20s. Although that's true again, which is cool. But anyways, so I'm sitting there going, these people are losing their jobs while I'm making a huge commission check. And that's going to happen with or without me. If it wasn't me working at Cognex, someone else is going to work at Cognex. I mean, that's the way it works. There is a huge demand for these companies to automate because machines don't get sick. Machines, I used to go into these manufacturing facilities and I would see these images on the wall of the 70s and 60s and 50s and sometimes 80s, 90s. And you'd see that the factory had hundreds, if not thousands of workers back in the day. There was like these pictures, historical pictures on the walls. It was actually really cool, by the way, to see all these companies and all these products behind the scenes and how they're made. That's actually been that was a really cool part of working there is picture you go into the grocery store. I know where all those products were made. It's not all of them, but a lot of them. Very cool. Connecticut has a lot of manufacturing. Who knew? That was my territory. So anyways, I'm in Connecticut and I'm seeing this happening and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit for people because I know I'll be fine because I'm a computer engineer and computer engineers are in demand. There's never going to be a shortage for a need for me. I got a message literally earlier this morning for a job. They want me to be on a board of directors, paid advisory for a board of directors. And I didn't answer the message and I'm grateful for it. But I did have that moment of, okay, that's right. I'm valued. I appreciate that. But my point is that, and this is the hardest part of this, the people who need the jobs most, those are the jobs that are going away.
Yep.
And I don't want this to land improperly, but I do think it's important because we talk about the truth here. So statistically speaking, the less educated population tends to have more children and tends to have children younger. Statistically speaking, please don't villainize me for this. This is just the statistics and you can research it. Statistically speaking, the more educated population tends to have less children and they tend to wait longer. So Emilia and I are going to have children, but we'll probably only have 2 or 3 and we're waiting until our 30s. So unfortunately, we have a population of less educated people globally having more children younger. So that population is growing faster than the more educated population. Now, here's the problem. When it comes to industrial automation and the exponential technology increases exponentially. Jobs for less educated people decrease exponentially, while the population of uneducated people increases exponentially. So I saw this huge issue in my early 20s, and I started freaking out. And I started going, holy crap, okay, listen, it's going to happen with or without me, but if you're not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem. And I do believe that. If you're not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem. So I was a part of the problem. That's my truth. One of the reasons I left Cognex was because of that. And so I decided to start a company, my mid-20s naive self, on, okay, instead of taking jobs and making money doing that, I'm going to make money equipping people to create a bigger, better, brighter future so they can create their own jobs. And so my whole, slogan was what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know.
Not a great way to do speeches in schools. Doesn't work that way.
But my whole business was built on helping people retool and re-skill up, for lack of better phrasing, for their future. And so that's what NLU does underneath all of the work that we do, is this through line of, hey, every episode you've ever listened to, if you're new or long-term listener, just think of whatever amount of episodes you've listened to. Every single one has an undertone. It has a through line. It has a theme. It's kind of like you watch a show on Netflix and it has a through line and a theme. Not only each episode has a theme, but the whole show has a theme. So each episode for Kevin and I has a theme, but the whole show has a theme too. And the theme underneath all of this is, hey, by the way, we believe in you and we believe you can build a bigger, better, brighter future on your own terms. And we did it, so we know you can do it too.
Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there.
Now, do we think you're going to, be a billionaire or blah, blah, blah? I don't know, maybe, but we do know that you can retool now. You can improve yourself now for a bigger, better, brighter future, and we believe in you. And that's really the undertone of what I started all those years ago, and then Kevin with the Hyperconscious podcast, and then we teamed up. And so the automation, the technology, it's going to continue. It's going to continue exponentially. And I actually think that in some ways that's actually good, because when a new technology comes into the marketplace, it makes the world richer. And I can be, I'll try to explain it based on a plow. So imagine, I don't want to go off the rails here, Kev. I know you're like, a plow? Where are we going here?
No, it's good.
Okay, so imagine farming back in the day before there was plows. I don't know if the plow is a great example. Let me give him a better one. Okay, picture farming equipment. Picture like the amazing farming equipment that they now use. I remember reading this back in the early 1900s. 70+% of the U.S. workforce was for agriculture. Now it's less than 3%. Now, the bad part about that is that a lot of people lost their jobs. The good part is that those people hopefully retooled and now can go do something else, and we can produce the same amount of food for less labor. Mm. And when you can produce more food for less labor, now the world goes less hungry, so to speak. Now, obviously, there's politics in that, and there's still countries that don't have that, and I'm not getting into any of that. But my point is that when a new technology arises like Zoom, it creates opportunity as well as taking away jobs. So Zoom takes away a lot of commuting and a lot of airplane tickets and a lot of that stuff. So during COVID, the airlines struggled because everyone was virtually conferencing with Zoom, and Zoom went from 50 million to 500 million users overnight, basically. And so their stock price went through the roof, and they did it very, very well. And I think they have a great platform. This is StreamYard, so StreamYard does better now. But what does that take away from? Okay, so you and I used to commute. We used to use gas, so oil companies. We used to use cars, so car companies. So every new technology takes away from some older jobs, older industries, and then pours back into a new industry like StreamYard, Zoom, that kind of thing. And so the last thing I'll say here to bring it back to our listeners is the people, to Kevin's point, that know the future, understand the future, are not always sharing that with the people who really need to know it. And so hopefully Kevin and I can flip that script and share some of the stuff here, because I have mentors that are on the board of directors on many of these tech companies, particularly robotics companies, and they know that the future is robotics. And so do I. I know that too. Most people don't, and so they aren't retooling, and that scares me.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to talk about because, like you said, you definitely can get villainized for it. But it is the thought for me is if I didn't start the podcast and I wasn't where I am, I don't know what I'd be doing. And a lot of the things that I did to get to where I am today might not exist. If I was a gas station owner and I could just have pumps that people do themselves versus have someone, it makes sense to say, well, that person's going to be sick, and if something happens, I'm going to have to find coverage, and what if they're not nice? What if they're not good at their job? What if the people don't like them? It's challenging. It's a very, very challenging thing. It's a very, very challenging thing. I'm blessed that we get to have so many amazing people on our team. I'm so grateful for that. So that's not something that's going to happen here to that degree. But I also understand, because I remember when ChatGPT, for those of you who don't know, you could explain it again better than I, but I know you've been waiting years to talk about AI, so I got to keep a leash on you here. It's something that it's magical. You put in a prompt, it'll spit out. If you say, give me 15 ideas for social media content, it'll give you 15 ideas with hashtags and all this amazing stuff. And in the very beginning, I villainized that. I was like, that's dumb. I'm never going to do that. I don't want to use that. I feel like that's cheating. I feel like that's shortcuts. Well, eventually it gets to the place where everybody's using that. And it becomes a detriment for you to at least try it, or not to try it. You don't have to make your life about it, but you can use it. I'm sure in the beginning, people didn't want to order from Amazon because they said, well, this 2-day shipping thing is stupid, whatever. I don't know the stats, but most people order from Amazon now because it's
and then
very
you've got the
convenient.
Netflix and Blockbuster thing.
Yeah, Netflix. Nobody's going to go to a store and rent a movie anymore.
Yeah.
That was going to happen
movie theaters
anyway.
are on their way out too.
I would agree.
Because now you can stream them quicker.
Yeah, and it's cheaper.
And you're from the comfort of your own home. So there's benefits, but there's always a con to every pro.
Well, and that's the thing is, a lot of people don't necessarily see the con. They see the pro. And that's really what I just want to make sure that you're not part of the con.
You mean the opposite?
No, I mean a lot of people who are, if your job doesn't get affected by it, you might not even notice it. You might not be thinking. You might be thinking, oh, this self-checkout thing's pretty cool. Even though 5 years ago, those were people there. It might slip your consciousness. I just want to make sure that at least you're aware of the changes that are coming, because I wasn't. I had no idea, AI and all that. I had no clue any of this was going to be the way it is 5 years ago. Not a clue. So I feel a responsibility to do an episode on this, even though, again, it always scares me to do episodes on stuff like this because I don't want to get villainized for it. But if that's the price for raising your awareness a little bit on something like that, like this, then I would say it's worth it.
I think hard truths are empowering if you deliver them in a way that's effective and you use them to. You mentioned at the beginning, and you and I were talking earlier today, when you can transform frustration into fascination. So, okay, I lost my job, I'm frustrated. Okay, now I'm fascinated. Okay, so let's do some research. Oh, it looks like a lot of people like me are losing their jobs in grocery stores. Okay, interesting. Well, now that fascination gets turned into transformation. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my associate's degree in management, and I want to be a general manager of a grocery store instead of someone who's at the register. their adversities are coming. These things are going to happen to all of us. No matter what, there's going to be adversities that come. The question becomes, can you turn that frustration into fascination, and then that fascination into transformation? And what's underneath that is what we talk about at NLU all the time. I can never talk enough about this, is self-belief. If you have high self-belief, you will innovate. You'll find a way to improve yourself or transform yourself or find a new way to be relevant in the marketplace. Here's a good example. Let's say you lost your job and you were at the cash register. Here's one that's never going away for a long time. I don't want to say never, but it's not going away for a long time. Get good at social media.
Yeah.
You want to get really good at social media? You know how many people need social media? Even grocery stores now need a social media presence.
Or it's just, okay, how many, you have X amount of years in customer service. You've been talking to people for a long time. There's always going to be some level of job in customer service. It's just different. Yeah. It's just different customer service. So even if you just stay within what you've been doing, I used to write that on my resume when I left the gas station. I said, I have years of customer service experience. I do. I've been talking to people for 8 hours a day and ensuring a positive experience with people for a long time. That
Definitely.
Carries over into other things.
It carries on over into every business, basically ever, because every business needs to have a good customer experience.
I think that's a good way to categorize it. If you're doing something and that thing is on the verge of getting replaced, unfortunately, there's probably other things within that bucket that you can do that maybe you just haven't thought of yet because you didn't have the necessity to do it.
And there's global marketplace now too, so you can sign up for Upwork, you can do Uber Eats, you can drive Uber. There's a lot of other jobs that are getting created by technology as well.
Yeah.
You can dog sit, you can do all kinds of stuff. So
you can work from home. There's a lot of people now that are working from home. If you're a stay-at-home parent, you can work from home potentially, and I'm sure that's probably not easy if you're juggling work and children, but if we can focus more, and I know it sounds like, again, it's one of those, I don't want this to sound like the fortune cookie thing, but if we can focus more on the opportunity than the sadness that created the opportunity, you're probably going to be in a better place. And ultimately, that's why I wanted to do the we all complain, but those of us who understand what we're complaining about usually are in better shape. If we can use the frustration that we're complaining about, to Alan's point, to get curious about something, to be some extra necessity, at the end of the day, I think that's positive. So that would be my next level nugget.
When COVID happened, Kev, myself, and a buddy of ours, Mark Metry, we sat down and we said, okay, how are we going to come out of this stronger than we went in? And we sat down and we all wrote in our notebooks what we're going to change, because we knew that everything was going virtual and we needed to find a way to still podcast virtually without you and I commuting to see each other. And so after that, we innovated a lot of things. We developed the business in it, and we adapted. And so I think that's the main through line here. But the very last thing I'll share is this. There's two types of complaining. There's complaining to complain. And then the second type is the type I recommend, which is complaining frustrations to try to get to the root cause of whatever the thing is. Complaining to understand. I think complaining can bring... So let's say I'm with Emilia and I say, I'm really annoyed or frustrated. I did this earlier today. Her alarm keeps going off on her phone, and we have her phone, our chargers are like across the house. And so in the morning I'm doing my journaling and her alarm will keep going off. And I complained a little bit, like, sweetheart, that keeps happening. She's like, I'm sorry, my watch keeps dying. I said, can we solve this? How can we solve this? And so I complained a little bit. And she, not negative, not toxic. I just complained a little bit about that. I'm like, listen, that's happened probably once a week for the last couple months. Can we please fix that? And so now we came up with a solution. And the solution is now we're going to use Alexa for our alarms. And the downside of that is now if I'm not up ahead of her, it's going to wake me up too, which is why she was using her watch. But I said that's better than me being interrupted while journaling each morning. So let's just transfer to that. So the point is that when you complain, you can find solutions when you find the root cause of the problem. And so complaining is constructive, in all honesty, if it's not just complaining to complain. And I really do believe that. I think that the whole world gets better when we all innovate through understanding how to get better through complaining and through frustration understanding. And deep conversations about these things. I mean, otherwise nothing ever improves.
Yeah, I think complaining is venting. That's all venting is. It's like, hey, can I vent? All you're saying is, hey, can I complain about something without judgment for a short period of time?
I gotta
without
get it
you
out.
looking at me any differently?
You gotta get it out. Otherwise you suppress it and then you're all bottled up. Yeah.
You got to get it out. If you are someone who is afraid of what we talked about today, reach out to Alan, because Alan can help you with this better than anyone. He understands all of that stuff. So reach out to Alan if you need help. You can reach out to me. I can't promise I'm going to be able to help you very much because I don't really understand how the world's going to change in the next 10 years, not as well as Alan. But yeah, reach out. If you have not yet got your tickets to Next Level Live 2024, please do so. If you're listening to this episode, we are 7 days out. So pretty much 6 days out for ticket purchasing. Link will be in the show notes. We'd love to have you. I went to the venue the other day. It is more beautiful than I remember. The mountains, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful spot. You're going to love it if you're in person. You'll love it virtual too, I promise. So link will be in the show notes. We'd love to have you there.
Also, if you want to read next level books with next level people, and by the way, self-education is definitely the way to stay marketable in the future. The books that we read are not just books for fun. They're books that help you improve yourself and develop your skills, the skills that are going to be needed in the future. So if you want to read next level books with next level people, we do book club every single week, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday. The link to register will be in the show notes.
Tomorrow for episode number 1644. So I told Alan, I said, Saturday's episode is kind of about wealth. I want to get back to health, wealth, life, and love. I want to get back to the roots. Tomorrow's episode is going to be about love. Are you setting unrealistic standards for your partner? I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen this so many times where somebody is upset with their relationship based on unrealistic standards that they're setting on their partner without their partner even realizing it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep improving. Next Level Nation.